Hello, so we're going to be recording the first part of Lab 7 in this video. We're covering three distributions in this lab, as you can see in the outline: the Bernoulli, the geometric, and the binomial. So, start with the Bernoulli distribution. These are all discrete distributions, meaning there are a whole number of outcomes. So we'll start with the Bernoulli. This is the simplest distribution. It is a two-outcome distribution, and we call the two outcomes success and failure. We're going to call the success 1 every time and failure 0, and you'll see why this is in a little bit. So a good example would be tossing a coin. If it's heads, let's call that a success. Tails, we'll call it failure. We could just as easily flip them. But this is what this distribution looks like here. Let you see this more wholly. The probability of each is 0.5, and they both add up to 1. So that's a probability distribution. But we can also consider events that are not 50-50. So here we got an insurance company. They have found that about 30% in a given year meet their deductible. And so we're gonna, for the remainder of this lab, call success an event where someone meets the deductible and a failure where someone does not. And again, we could just easily switch it, but we're going to keep it this way so as to avoid confusion. And so suppose we were to conduct these trials again and again. If I were going to repeat this maybe n times and count the total number of successes that happen. Here's an example of some code that plots a random sample of people for which 70% of the people are ones. No, this is wrong. It should be 30% of the people ones, 70% of the people are zeros. 30% meet the deductible, 70% don't. I'll fix that for you guys in the lab. And so let's see, how many of these add up to be, let's run it again since I had to change those probabilities. How many of these 10 people met their deductible? If one is meeting the deductible, we can say I want 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 10. So another fancy way to do that is just say sum of x. So that's the total number of people. Oh, I should put that up here. We want to find the sample proportion here. So if we add those up, we have to divide by 10 because I had 10 people in my sample. So here's a formula for what we just did. We added up 1, 2, 3 up to 10. We added up this one, this one, this one, this one, and then we divided by the total number of 10. And that's called a sample proportion of successes. So that gives us, we run that, 4 out of 10 is 40. So let's do that again. Let's plot this with, instead of a sample of size 10, let's change that to 100 and see what happens to our sample proportion. Here's our sample. Okay, there's 100 entries. And since x is still the same variable, I can just put that below and see how many samples I got. Ooh, what's wrong here? This is not a probability, it's not a proportion. Notice my sample size changed to 100, so I should divide by 100. There we go, 33%. Okay, and you can do it one more time for 1,000. But here we go, if I run this with 1,000, it's just a lot of data. Generally, we don't want to show that much data. So let's delete that X there. So when I run it, it doesn't print the data for me because we know it's in there. It's in there, so now we can find the sample proportion and you can see what's happening. This actually illustrates a lot of large numbers, that the actual proportion of your sample gets closer and closer to your theoretical proportion as your numbers get bigger. So here's a formula. The mean of this distribution is the proportion of success if you add up all the proportions. And the standard deviation ends up being this, which we'll use later, but for now it's just a formula to find out how far apart this data is spread. I think that's it. Did we skip anything? Nope. One thing you could do is, if you wanted, is you could plot this for the deductible situation. If we have 0.3 as a success, 0.7 as a failure, here's the distribution of meeting the deductible. And it's, again, this is called a Bernoulli distribution, Bernoulli random variable. I thought that was in this. But anyhow, that's the first section. We'll see you in the next video. I'll make it 3 parts, so break it up. See you there.